Oh, would you look at that over there? It's none other than Stardeus, sponsored by Paradox Arc. And if you're thinking, wow, what an interesting looking game, but what is Stardeus? Well, Stardeus is a deep space colony simulator set on a starship manned by drones and human survivors. You play the part, you at home, play the part of a benevolent AI, or let's be honest, not so benevolent AI, given that I know the type of players who play these games. Now, as I said, this is a sponsored video, and wow, would you believe it, coincidentally, there is a link in the pinned comment down below that will let you have a look at Stardeus for yourself, and when you click that, it'll let Paradox Arc know that I was the one that sent you. I'm gonna get this video going live at the same time. The game goes live on Steam. But to put it very bluntly, if you've watched anything else I've ever done, if you're familiar with games that I am familiar with, intimately familiar with on this channel, chances are you probably are interested in Stardeus, because it's very heavily inspired by things like RimWorld, Factorio, and they very openly say that on the Steam page, and I can see why. But I think, as you'll see when we dive into the tutorial in a second, it isn't just a clone. It is very unique in a lot of its design, a lot of its approach to things. And I will also say take a look at the YouTube chapters as well, because I'll not only be playing through the entire tutorial, because I think it's a very good tutorial, got a couple of criticisms of it here and there, and I'll talk about some other features that I think it does skip over a little bit, but not only will I be playing through all of that so you can get a very good idea immediately whether or not this is the type of game for you, I do also want to take a look at not only the mod screen, because I think the modding for this could be prolific when it takes off. I think that the settings are also worth looking at as well. I don't want to put on like a total biscuit hat too much, but the settings are... I haven't seen a game like this with this in-depth settings in a long, long time. Not just talking about like usual customizability stuff like resolution settings, which to be fair, it has a lot of customization for it, but it's got a lot of approachability, I think, for everybody. Minor things like changing it from metric to imperial, but actual accessibility settings, being able to completely fine-tune things like input devices, game sticks, keyboard and mouse, or if you can't use a keyboard and mouse, being able to completely alter kind of dead zones on the gameplay and things like that. It's massively in-depth, and I think there's a lot of accessibility for this. If that helps out even so much as just a single person decide whether or not they can actually play it at all, that's good with me. So we're going to go ahead and start a new game. There's a bunch of scenarios to choose from. The wrecked scenario, though, is the... Hi there, hello, me from the future. Probably worth mentioning that, though I do play through the tutorial, I do expand a little bit beyond that. When I start building the ship, I get a little distracted with building the ship, and then it occurs to me, I'm just going to turn this into a full playthrough, because there's no way I can justify and really showcase everything this game has in one like 30-minute brief overview. So we're going to do a full playthrough. Don't get too attached to the ship, because I decide very quickly, hey, let's go for the HMS Bucko Drink from scratch starting tomorrow. From the wrecked scenario, though, is the tutorial. It recommends you play it through once, and I would definitely recommend you play it through once as well to get an idea of some of the systems, because it is quite unique, like I said, compared to other similar games. You've got Leaving Earth, which I actually messed around. I think I prefer that if you just want to dive right in. Start with a small platform, tons of materials, lets you get really creative right off the get-go. Empty ships, random ships, and then finally just a true sandbox where you're out there in deep space. Stardeus has a story generator, which is a kind of background system for generating events, things that will pop up, things that will threaten your ship as you play along. You can set that to a balanced one, which is just kind of your intended difficulty, purely random, so events can happen no matter what, or you can completely disable it, which is also quite nice. Probably might be a good idea during the tutorial. Ship name, we're going to go with the Jerry King. The HMS Jerry King. And you've also got a modifiers section too, which can add a whole bunch of other stuff. If you prefer to play in a totally peaceful mode, just flying around space, exploring, trading, building up your ship, you can disable combat entirely. You can again change the difficulty independent of the storyteller as well, relaxing through to challenging there. You can change the size of the map so you can build an actual honker of a ship. Resource multipliers if you just want a nice relaxing shipbuilding experience, all that good stuff. We're just going to leave it as it is default right now, because we're going to dive in with the old tutorial here. Earth has perished. Survivors are roaming the universe in search of a new home. You are hibernating in the HMS Jerry King, an Ark vessel equipped with an advanced AI that will wait colonists after a base has been established on a habitable planet. This might be the greatest octahedron cosplay game I have ever seen in my whole life. We now get to play as a big old purple and blue floating fella, enabling visual input in 3, 2, 1. Greetings, colonist. I'm Ship OS, an artificial intelligence that controls the ship. There was a catastrophic failure that triggered an upload of human consciousness. You were selected as the most compatible surviving subject. Wow. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. No, I'm sorry. That's a slim pickings, my friend. Ah, and there you are with your little robot friends. This is the ship computer that hosts our neural network. Try to preserve this device at all costs, unless it violates Asimov's first law. If robot go bad, kill robot. Looks like someone managed to survive. We should keep an eye on the colonists. Fixing and relocating some facilities over to the area could keep them alive longer. There are 778 more survivors hibernating in the stasis array, but life support systems will become unstable unless we re-establish power. Malfunctioning pods will trigger premature wake-up events. To minimize casualties, we must rebuild the ecosystem in that area. If we build bridge controls and thrusters, we can travel to nearby planets and use the shuttle for mining expedition. It will allow us to establish resource processing pipeline and produce essential materials for rebuilding our ship. Would you like to take the crash course? A very poor choice of words there, robot friend. I'd highly recommend it. And so would the robot. So we're absolutely going to do that. To make it easier for you, I'll render visual guidelines. I actually really do like this part of the tutorial, that your cursor, never restricted anywhere. They won't take control of it or anything like that, but it'll always kind of point you in the right direction, literally. You can click and drag this dialogue to move it around. The course should take about 15 minutes. Let's begin. Use WASD and middle mouse button to pan the camera. Very standard controls there. We can use page up, page down, or zoom like a civilized person to zoom in or out. And then we can change, and this is when it might start looking a little bit more familiar if you've ever watched any other video I've ever made in my entire life. You can toggle the time flow using space and switch between different speeds with 1, 2, and 3. Below the time controls, you'll find buttons to toggle overlays that show useful information about the state of the ship. Now, there's quite a lot. You get a lot of information. I'm not going to go through all of them one by one because we'll be here till next week. And I want to emphasize as well, it's not mandatory. You don't have to keep track of every single one of these. You're not going to be constantly poring over spreadsheets or anything like that one. It's just lots of extra useful information if you really want to run a tight ship. So some of these, like the electricity grid, will pop up as a little subcontext menu. One thing I also like is you can put this wherever, and then if you close it down, it'll remember exactly where you keep it. I quite like that one. Electricity grid, obviously quite useful. You've got things like your inventory, so you can see all of your items that aren't in storage right now. They're all scattered about, but we'll eventually put into storage. Then you've got kind of more overlays for the general ship. So you've got temperature, so you can see the various different rooms, or lack of rooms right now. 18 degrees C in there, and then basically absolute zero everywhere else, right? And then you've got oxygen, things like insulation and air tightness. You've got your list of robots and survivors with known beings. Available tasks I actually quite like, because that gives you a nice overview of everything you've got going on the ship, so you can find out your bottlenecks if you really want to keep things as efficient as possible. And then very quickly, you've got rooms, sections, walking difficulty, planning, so you can actually design your ship a little bit better, which I'll be using a huge amount. Research, we'll leave for a moment, because that's one of the more complex systems that you will be going back and forth to. Event log, so you can see exactly what's happened, when it happened. So 49 minutes ago, in-game, of course, we started the tutorial. The spaceship woke up 3 hours ago, in-game. You've got your wallet when you unlock the economy research, and then all sorts of other things too, including one thing for a little bit more about the modding towards the end of the video. But for the time being, a lot of these we can't do anything with yet anyway, like ship controls, of course, I think it's fair to say we haven't really got a ship to control right now. Below the overlay controls, you'll find a list of current event notifications. I'll send you a test notification when you're ready, and this is why I said that you don't need to be sitting there poring over every single one individually, because you get a nice little outliner that will show you everything that's going on anyway. So if there are desperate things that you have to focus on, like there's oxygen depressurization in a room, you don't need to carefully take a look at air tightness and oxygen levels. It'll pop up saying, hey, by the way, Bert's having a real difficult time breathing right now. When an event is triggered by an object, clicking the icon will focus on the object. So we can click that and it'll take us into the battery. So if we're all the way over here, zoomed in, and we click that, it will take us all the way over there. Selected objects will have a green outline, and an info panel will appear in the top left. Use left mouse click to click on the ship's computer, and again you get the kind of general information. It's 50 kilowatt battery, it's fully constructed, doesn't have any wear, doesn't need repairing, anything like that. And then some other things that are useful, like when it will catch fire, because I have a habit of lighting things on fire in similar games. So using the left mouse click, we can click on the ship's computer and again see some more info. Some things will have specified info too, so it's not just kind of a general overview, what temperature will this catch fire, because that's not so useful for everything. But for your ship computer, it'll tell you things like that this is a heat-producing thing, but it'll also tell you specifics about it too. You've got 7 out of 8 CPU, which is basically just the amount of robots you control, and then its efficiency as well. If there's more than one object in the same location, you can click twice to click below it. Would you look at that? Most of our databanks were destroyed during the crash. We'll have to recover the lost blueprints. Click the research overlay button to have a look at the research tree. This might look pretty overwhelming to begin with, but the trees themselves are pretty intuitive, right? You go top to bottom, and some research require multiple different trees to get to, like quantum computing, for example, needs a little bit from science, a little bit from computing. This has got some pretty unique mechanics compared to other colony building sims, of which I've played probably every single one at this point. You've got to consider your ship's computer score is very much a main focus of a lot of the stuff you do, so there are some other mechanics involving that we'll talk about when we get there, because we're going to be focusing on that very soon. But for the time being, we're going to start with energy. Seems pretty important. This kind of touches on that a little bit. As you get new technologies, your research storage will fill up. You need to add new memory and disk modules to keep the research going. So you can't just blitz through to the best research points on the tree. You do have to be a bit more considerate, balance things. Of course, the more storage you add, the more energy you're going to need. The more energy you need, the more resources you're going to need. I do like that mechanic a lot, because I'm not a fan of just going for all the best research as soon as possible. Otherwise, every playthrough ends up the same, right? We need some raw materials for construction. Yes, we do. I should really pause it before our colonists start popping out. We can pick something to take it apart by, again, it's pretty intuitive, right? Let's say that we want to get rid of this floor tile here. You just right-click on it. You can order a deconstruction, and then some of your deconstructibles head over there and start taking it apart. Robots also have all kind of specialized jobs, but I'll talk more about that later. Now, you don't want to be sitting there clicking on every tile to take it apart, right? There is a really nice radio menu that I like a lot. It makes it so much quicker, and I imagine it's quite friendly for playing with anything other than keyboard and mouse as well, right? If you can just pop open a quick menu here. So we can go deconstruct and select an order over a bigger area. So we're going to take apart all of these tiles right here. It's important to repair any damage in the areas we'll be using. You'll not be able to use damaged devices or build objects on top of damaged floors. We can right-click, use the repair tool to patch things up. It'll show you what's damaged when you kind of hover near it. It's got that kind of circumference around the mouse, and it'll highlight things that are damaged. Honestly, this is something I wish I'd done more when I first played the tutorial, because this is so much more useful. Rather than trying to build everything from scratch, you should definitely take a look around the ship and see what you can repurpose to kick things off. So let's go ahead and repair this this energy connector right here. And then one of our little construction drones will head over and start patching that one up. When it's repaired, we can just relocate it. There you go, good as new. Well, not good as new. Good enough to use, and that's all that's important here. We can... And you're probably all asking, we can rename the robots. Obviously, I'm going to rename the robots in a second. Let's deal with the tutorial first. I detected a damaged sleeping pod that we can repair and reallocate to the survivor area. Repair the object and then use that to relocate. How are our survivors doing? Hello. We've got Jaslyn. Jaslyn the human and Project the human. Go ahead and give them a little bed. There you go, fellas. Enjoy. One bed, the two of you can share. Let's wait for the energy research to complete. Fast forward time to speed it up. Research will not advance when time is... pause. The first time I played this, I thought the energy system and the power grids and the electricity tools were a bit weird. Now that I'm used to it, it's actually pretty nice. It's actually pretty convenient, to be honest. So let's build a matter reactor to start building electricity. Here's the first weird thing. Matter reactor outputs 20,000 kilowatts. You're probably thinking, what do you fuel the matter reactor with? Anything. That's the best part. Absolutely anything you want. We built our matter reactor. We now have to connect it up to the grid. The electricity grid is pretty complex on the surface when you're not used to it. But when you're used to it, you're like, wow, this just kind of makes a lot of sense. Let's throw around a connector just about there. Now, you might notice with the connectors, when you place them down, they'll have a kind of a circumference around them. That's where they can connect to devices within. As we place it down here, you can see that it's got that kind of linking effect to it, almost that kind of stream of electricity between one thing or another, and that will give you the kind of visual indication as well of what you can connect up to should you place this down. So let's go right-click, connect, and get that one onto there, and then this one onto here. There you go. So we've got the ship computer outputting 10,000 watts there. That's outputting to this guy, which we could then go and connect up to some other things, like, for example, we could throw it onto a lovely light bulb. Why do robots need light bulbs? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it's obviously for our colonists. The robots probably don't need it. So to start producing electricity with our matter reactor, we have to fuel it. And you can fuel it with actually anything. So let's say, for example, we want to throw in a bunch of microchips. Those output 200 energy. We're going to throw in steel plates. We've got 5,000 of those. They output 520. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So you might have noticed this pop up. And they don't mention it in the tutorial, really frustratingly. And I hope it's something they change in the future with it. When we set that up, it gives you this menu that allows you to control the priority of this particular job. And you can do that for every job. every single job, whether it's gathering stuff or repairing something. It is such a useful button that's just kind of skipped over. I guess it's fair. Again, it's fairly intuitive. It's fairly obvious. It's right there, right? So you can change that to be the highest priority. That way, if you're really desperate and your workers are doing something else, you can say, hey, drop everything and let's get this refueled. I'll show that off a little bit better when we've got storage and we've got all of our robots that work at the same time, hauling stuff and kind of repairing things. Change the priority on it is so good without having to kind of go directly to the robot and move it over, which you also can do. All workers need energy too. Use the quick search to find a charge station blueprint. So tab is our quick search, lets you search anything you can possibly build, which is quite useful. So let's go charge station. Let's throw one of these down. Again, we want to throw it near the power grid, right, so that we can actually connect it up. So let's go ahead and pop that guy down there. And then, of course, when that's built, we're going to have to connect it up to the grid as well. So let's go one of those. We've covered the very basics, but there's much more to learn. There's no time to show you everything. Instead, you can find things going out on your own, exploring the UI, and keep going deep into every menu item. You want to do that, trust me, because that's how I found a lot of this extra stuff in the first place. The tutorial very much is the very basics, and I'm kind of hoping it does get fleshed out a little bit more. So it's now going to show us how to issue direct orders to robotic workers. Select any worker and find the direct control button in the manage worker section of the UI. So let's pick Army, the robot, and then we can go manage worker and then direct control. You can also see its job priorities here, so you don't change it from some sort of central menu. You go per robot and adjust it in their subsettings. So this robot's highest priority is firefighting, as you would expect, and then it does things relatively evenly, but hauling at the lowest. So if it hasn't got anything else to do, it will just start moving stuff to storage. But then you can also adjust every single sub job from the actual job itself, which I really do like, and you can also copy it over, which is so good. Just being able to drop that into another robot is always great, right? But then we can also say, don't shut down. I'm sorry, little robot. We can also say direct control. When a worker is selected, we hold control and hover the cursor on any location to estimate if the worker can actually go there. Hold shift and hover pending tasks on the map to see if the worker can perform the task, and then click to actually give the order. So let's say we want him to go and repair something. We would hold shift and then say, you know, go over there and go do the thing. We'll just send him, I don't know, we'll just send them over there for the time being, just to show that go away, little robot, and then he'll run over there. Even though he hasn't got anything to do over there. Because I just like torturing robots, as the benevolent AI that I am. The crash course is now complete. Thank you for your patience. For further learning, I highly recommend exploring the operations manual and the codex overlay. I will provide suggestions when certain actions are advisable. Keep an eye on the events list, and good luck. Thank you. We've got some new technology there. It's completely finished. The research is complete. That is technology. And we got ourselves a quest. So it does still kind of help pigeonhole you in the right direction for your tutorial. It's not like, you know, good luck building the ship. It will still give you suggestions here. We can click on those. It'll give a breakdown. If I close that other menu there. So we can see we've got to research a winch. Install there's a path to the stasis array, which is where our crewmates are all stashed away, and then build a chain of connectors so that we can actually get that back online to the power grid. One of the criticism I've got very briefly for this tutorial, I do think it could do with a basic and then advanced tutorial where it talks about kind of those submenus like I was talking about. One of the criticism I've got is I've played through it maybe 3 or 4 times now. Every single permutation of the tutorial was different. Some ships had, like we've got right now, where the ship computer core is on one side and the kind of colonist and the stasis array is on another. I've loaded into a different ship just to show this off again. Everything's a lot more clustered together, right? You've got kind of this section over here and then a bunch of derelict stuff. But loading into a different ship with another different layout, I had this thing, which was completely separated. The stasis pod was on the other side. It was completely unwalled. People were popping out and dying, and it was kind of stressful for the first time that I've played it. So just bear that in mind when you do dive in, that the tutorial does have a lot of kind of different permutations to it, and my guys were just popping out of their pod right into the atmosphere and dying horribly. In this first tutorial I did as well, I had a transport pod land with Crankshaft and George on a transport pod, but Crankshaft, the moron, landed the ship on a part of the ship that wasn't filled with oxygen. So poor George the dog stepped outside the pod and decompressed instantly. There are pets in the game, which I think is a fairly big selling point, but it was a bit harrowing for my first ever tutorial and dive into Stardeus to watch a dog exploding when it landed in an empty room out in the depths of space. I never thought to try this because I never thought you'd be able to do it. Can we just relocate all of the stuff into this part of the ship and maybe start working out of here and upgrade out of here instead? Might make a little more sense if we can connect the computer core up to the stasis array. Oh, it needs a construction skill of 7. All right, nice try. It was a good idea. On the plus side, this does mean we can do a pretty fun feature. I'm not sure how frequently this is going to be useful, except for like really catastrophic situations, but you can winch the ship back together. First thing we need to do is research the winch. So we're going to build ourselves a winch. It's 25 kilowatts. It's 4 active memory needed. That's obviously the kind of overall computational capacity of our main core, for lack of a better word, and then also the permanent storage there. 10 out of 32. You can see what you've got up here. It's all very straightforward. While that's going on, our little robot friend has found a reactor efficiency upgrade in the wreckage. We can open up the inventory and find it, and then put it near a matter reactor, so a robot can reach it, and then we can upgrade the matter reactor with that. So you've got a kind of upgrade sub-menu here. We can just pop it in like that. I guess it's obviously to try and teach you how to use the inventory to find things on the map if there are out there. There we go. Thank you, the Bender. I guess we'll rename all of our robots now, right? On our little character menu here, and this works both for your robots and your spacefarers, we've got what it is. So we've got a construction drone here. His current name is Nut, I presume. You got first name, nickname, last name. So I'm going to call you, how about Grigner? We've got equipment. So in this case, it could have a weapon, but we don't have a weapon. The faction, HMS Jerry King, of course. Its comfortable temperature is absolute 0. We've got its health. Its current task, not moving, just kind of standing still. See its needs, which for robots is fairly straightforward, electricity, maintenance, and then purpose. Wow, that's pretty deep. Its skills, which are pretty straightforward. It's 1 out of 9 on construction, 1 out of 3 on repair, 1 out of 3 on mining. It's got a pretty low skill cap on that guy. And then you can see its kind of various different jobs that you can directly control there as well. And then you can kill it horribly if you hate this robot. It's also got like a full evaluation list here on the tasks menu, so you can see what it's done, what it's failed to do, what it can do, etc, etc. It goes very deep. I'll be honest, I played for about 3 or 4 hours. I don't think I ever looked at that once, to be honest. It's got as much detail as you need, and I think that's a great way to sum up pretty much every aspect of this game. We should order some repairs to go ahead. Yeah, I completely agree. So what we want to do is try and get some crew quarters online as soon as possible so that they don't all hop out of storage and then decompress like they have. While we're waiting for that wrench research now, let's get some connectors down here. We might have to get the winch going first in hindsight, because that's not going to reach, is it? Well, it's a bit of a weird spawn, I will admit. I mean, we could do one there and one there, but let's wait for the winch. You'll see why. There we are. Master reactor is now upgraded, so I think that outputs another 500 or something like that. If I remember correctly, let's have a look here. Reactor efficiency upgrade, energy output 500. There you go. Makes compatible reactors use 33% less material to produce the same energy output. Multiple upgrades do stack, and you can craft those eventually when you've got enough research as well. Oh, that is something we could be doing rather than just sitting around waiting for the winch to finish. Let's throw down some storage. Now, it's probably worth mentioning as well, this is a very basic for the tutorial. It's a very basic cut-down menu. As you go through the events in this tutorial scenario, you get more and more added to this contextual menu. But if you start like sandbox mode, you'll get everything. So it'll be like not just electricity facilities structure, you get different aspects of like crafting, terminals and submenus and things like that as well. But just for now, this is what we're limited to, but this isn't everything. Let's throw down a couple of storage units. There you go, little fellas, enjoy. You know, let's also connect this battery up to it. It's not a bad idea given that we're not actually using much energy right now. Whoops, try using the right thing, genius. There we go. Now that we've done that, I can kind of show off the thing I was talking about. So if we say haul all the things, now this is kind of interesting. The amount you can haul depends on how good your PC is doing, because your ship's computer core is managing all of the robots, right? So if you try and give it too many tasks, it'll say, you can't do that, fool, because you've only got 8 exabytes of memory, and that limits you to a certain amount of tasks. But the more complicated you make your ship's computer core, the more stuff you can do with your robot. So it really is just like the central part of the entire ship, not only in terms of research, but also your colonist management. Everything ties back to how good the ship is. And you're playing the AI in the ship core. So it's pretty empowering. Wow. All our little fellas are out there hauling right now, so they're all completely preoccupied, a little bit too busy. But let's say, I'd really like to repair this crafting station. Let's go ahead and do that. But it's pending repair. We're waiting for someone to come over, right? If we click the tasks on the repair tab here and then say, hey, do this a bit sooner, you little robot idiot, the robot idiot will head over right away and do it right away. Which is so good, because you don't have to sit there and flick through a load of different menus and change the job priorities and things like that. You can just say, okay, this is urgent. I don't necessarily want it always to be urgent, so I'm not going to change the job priority overall, but right now I need this doing. Incoming storage capsule. Oh, no. Oh, no, last time this happened, horrible. Oh, hello? Oh, hello. Boy, I hope that's not explosive. Storage capsule. Should we open it? Oh, God. One of our colonists might come over and crack that open. Oh, one of the robots is coming. Hello? Oh, it's tires. It's tires. And what have we got? We got protein, rocks, and rubber. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for that one. And if you're wondering, you know, actually, are there horrible monsters? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are definitely horrible monsters. There we go. It's winching time. That's the Stardeus motto. Now let's throw down a winch hook, roughly. I want to pop it, like, right there. And let's throw down a winch anchor. Where does it need to go? Like, roughly... Oh, God, I'm not going to try and line this up. I am going to try and line this up. Let's throw it there, and let's just see what happens. Again, I'd like to clarify I've played a lot of space-based colony games. None of them have this, quite frankly, incredible mechanic to winch. Oh! It wasn't terrible. I didn't line it up quite perfectly. I think this thing got in the way, but that was all right, wasn't it? Let's just see if we can get that lined up a little bit better. I'm going to repair the particle collector here. There you go. That's a little bit better. It's not perfect still, but it's something. Let's relocate our winch over to... Oh, what do you think? Can we winch this entire section of the ship in? You know what? I'm going to try it. And winch. Oh... Oh, it's so good, isn't it? It's so good. I think the HMS Jerry King needs a bit of a facelift at this point, because it's a dump. I mean, the reeling has really helped out a lot, but it's not perfect, is it? Let's queue up some research before we get started. Now, I want to go for computing. That will unlock disk modules and memory modules. I will admit, the one thing that's a little bit annoying with the research tree is that the text boxes are affected by the zoom level as well. So you can be all the way out here, but it's kind of difficult to get it to line up, to be honest with you. So we've got memory modules and disk modules there, so we'll throw that in the queue. That will in turn allow us to get more complicated research, but of course those need power to run. So it's all going to be a bit of a balancing act. While they're working on that, let's see if we can get any... Is there any useful stuff we want to repair? Any stuff that we want to... Well, obviously we want to relocate the stuff that we have repaired. Let's just throw it up here for the time being. And then I think, honestly, this entire part of the ship... we'll probably just take apart. Research complete computing. They didn't really get much done, and of course you can build more robots, more drones eventually. The robots all have particular types that they're good at as well. So these ones can fly and deconstruct. We've got another drone up there. This fella, Champ, that can only operate on the ground, so can't fly over to this other section to help deconstruct. As I recall, they are down here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. So you can see you've got your basic robotics research that unlocks the cleaner bot, and then you've got construction robot, but it is grounded. You've got carriers, and then drones, which are flying, but can also do the construction. Then eventually sentry drones that do combat for you. Now, after getting that basic computing one, I quite like to go for advanced energy. Get those fancy solar panels. It allows us to build floor sockets that have a lot more simultaneous connections, but a little less range. So that's good for throwing in the middle of a room and then powering the whole thing off of one socket. It's not very spaceship, I will admit, but we've patched it all up. Realized about 2 seconds into the repair that for the advanced energy we need 50,000 kilowatts, which of course we don't have right now, but I thought we'd get it all fixed first and kind of go through things one thing at a time. So let's throw down a couple of other matter reactors. Then we'll get that connected to the connector and get that fuel. And that should be all the power we need to start the research properly. Now we've got the power dealt with. We need 4 memory and 4 disk space to actually be able to get the research done. What a hungry little fella. Look at those disk drives you need. Let's build another connector dedicated to just the PC grid itself. Wow, this is going to be hideous. I'll plan all this out better later on. This is going to be horrible for the time being. There you go, 50,000 kilowatts in those discs later, and now we are ticking down 21 hours it's going to take up 50,000 kilowatts. Oh, droid. Droid woke up from stasis. Yet we haven't got power to that part of the ship, so the doors are wide open. Droid, you moron. Let's build some basic connectors through the ship, and then we'll build dedicated room connectors later on, but I want to get a pretty good coverage on it now that we've basically finished getting all the pathing together. Ah, there we go. I love the visuals for the energy grid in this game. It's so fancy. That's all the way over to our colonist room where Project is sleeping while Jaslyn is eating some wheat by the looks of it. You good? Everything fine? Seeking relief from hygiene. Ah, I get it. Jaslyn's last task was a shower, and that's because she's a gamer. Let's go ahead and connect up the stasis array to finish our current task. There you go. Oh, nice. And then our next quest after that would be connect to the survivor area, but of course we've already done that by building all the ship walls together and winching everything in. And we've pressurized the stasis array as well, because it's all nicely sealed at this stage. We do need to get power to the doors. Then after that, we've got to establish food production so that we keep the crew actually alive. Does kind of help a little bit. Advanced energy. There you go. So that unlocks a new type of connector. You see, it's got floor socket 32.8. So what it means by that is it can connect 32 things to it, but it has a radius of 8 around it. So a much smaller area that it actually affects, but you can connect loads more stuff to it. Then we've also got things like the 1612 connectors, so we connect 16 things to that, but it's only got a 12 block radius. Honestly, I found a combination for bigger ships of 1612 and the floor sockets working really well. Then we got solar panels, which is basically just free power. The only problem is you have to go out there and clean it every now and again, so it gets covered in space debris. What a ship! We've got the planters reinstalled. We're going to throw in a little bit of wheat now. You need to get... They need heat, funnily enough. We need some heat for these plants. Then I think we have to throw down a cooking station. That will allow our colonists over here to cook themselves their meals. I mean, it's pretty disastrous for them. It's a horrible life. Sleeping in their pods right now. The most entertainment they've got is sitting at their wooden table. They're alive, god damn it, and that's more than can be said for any of these people who climbed out of the pod a little bit too early. And now we need to take our cooking station and say, let's make some survival meals rather than eating the raw meat. It's probably not that nice. So we can change the amount that we need there. We'll just set it to that, that's fine. And then, as if by magic, little project, one of our only surviving crewmates for now, is going to cook us some meals. Oh, look at that. Oh, that looks delicious. Oh, to showcase another really nice convenient feature that isn't in the tutorial at all. Let's say, for example, you're doing exactly what I'm doing now, which is getting your tutorial ship all completely online, connecting up to the many different rooms. Let's say all of a sudden you can't reach this thing over here. Well, if you try and build that node, it'll then ask you what connect you want to build instead, because it just can't quite reach there. Oh, and a new person's come out of storage. Oh, shit. That's actually the developer. Hello. All right, this is a really bad time to say this, and I didn't plan on doing this when I started. But as I'm sitting here playing it and just casually building out the ship, not only is it very relaxing, it's a very enjoyable time, but I feel like I kind of want to do this as a full series instead, because there's just so many mechanics that I'm never going to be able to... I don't think I can edit this down enough to both keep it nice and concise, but also show off enough features. So instead, I'm going to roll it into a full series. I never agreed to that. Never thought I would do it just from this one particular episode. But you know what? Honestly, why not? Because I'm never going to be able to cover it all. And actually, it's quite fun. So you know what? Forget about retrofitting the HMS Jerry King. We're going to build a brand new, from scratch Jerry King. Hopefully starting tomorrow. We're going to start completely from the beginning, from this very basic platform start where we're given some materials, we're given some robots, we're given our stasis array, and we go completely from nothing. That way we'll be able to see all that space combat, all the different levels of research that I just cannot cram into one 30-minute video. The trading, the exploration, maybe it's time for the return of space pirate Captain Bucko Drink. I think even though I've barely scratched the surface of it and instead we'll pivot into like a full, much more fleshed out series, I think you will probably know by now whether or not this is your type of thing. I think you'll more than be able to get a feel of the systems in place and how it all works just from, I mean, even that first 15-minute tutorial that the game gives you. But again, we have barely scratched the surface here, and I think I could do this much more justice if we go from a beginning, go from complete scratch, really start renaming our characters and our robots from the get-go and take a look at every aspect of it in much better detail. I know I said it before, but this is still in early access. I know that they want to do it as partly a way to get feedback and add features based on what people think, right? I do think that the benefit of having all these sandbox systems and the kind of freeform style of game is that as long as it's got a pretty firm foundation, you can get hours and hours of playstyle out of it, right? Because you can just design different spaceships, try different playstyles, go for a full peaceful run, go for the more sweaty, hyper-difficult mode. I think it stands pretty uniquely amongst other games that we played. Of course, we played similar games on the channel before that are the kind of spaceship builders. We played, of course, mods for other games that are focusing heavily on the spaceship building aspect. What I do like about this one is that you've got that kind of duality system between the robots that you directly control, and you are that kind of, again, benevolent or not so much AI running the ship's day-to-day operations. The colonists almost act as kind of this, not to draw comparisons between other games too much, but also the kind of automated lemmings, prison architect style characters who kind of mind their own business, and you're kind of influencing their actions by what you do with your robot and computer aspect of things. A couple of things I wanted to touch on then before we transition the series from you know, showing how Stardeus works and all that into generic meme series where we call the characters silly things and then they die horribly. You've got the mods and the settings, so to cover the mods first, of course the workshop's a bit barren right now because the game's not even out yet. But I think the modding's going to be pretty easy to do and pretty easy for people to pick up. There is a tutorial mod that I'll talk more about technical stuff in a minute, then everybody can skip over it who's not interested. I think it's going to be pretty easy to throw mods together, and it looks like there's a lot of customization, both in terms of graphically and in terms of making more complex mods in C# and things like that. There's some pretty good stuff going for it. So you've got this mod template that you can use, and it acts as kind of a springboard to also producing mods a lot faster. And there's some good documentation too that I kind of read through on there. For those of you just looking to download mods and change your game experience, it's super straightforward. Subscribe on the workshop, and this is kind of one of the few mods that's up there. There's only 5 mods on there right now because the game's not even out. This one just changed the background for the research screen. I hit subscribe, I boot the game up, it was already enabled, so you don't even have to mess around with kind of any load orders or enabling it manually or anything like that. It's hard to get a good gauge on what type of mods there'll be. Right now, there's a theme mod. There is this mod that we have going here that changes the background for kind of a basic UI mod there. There's a different UI mod. There's an item mod that adds a plantable Christmas tree. And then there is the template mod for those of you looking at making mods. I had a look through the documentation, the actual kind of mod file structure and things like that to the mod file type. So it's a CS project, so if you've got VS Studio, you can just crack that open and take a look through. Same applies to the Stardeus mod template. So this is not only going to act as kind of like a tutorial, but it's actually on the GitHub got a repo for you to follow and some documentation up there for compiling the DLL, for uploading it to the workshop as well. It seems like this is going to help cover all of it. So I'm not gonna talk about too much in there, but actually looking at the files and the structure on there, it's all JSON files. So you can crack those open and kind of adjust, like if you just want to do like a minor mod, maybe like rebalancing and things like that. I mean, you could do it with Notepad effectively, right? Images are all just kind of PNGs, things like that. So for retextures and things, any raster program can pretty much do it. Effectively, a bit of C# and a bit of paint, you got yourself a Stardeus mod. And it's that easy. No more complicated than that at all. The settings for this game is absolutely enormous. One thing I realized is playing other colony simulation games, for as much as I have a lot of inherent muscle memory that I was kind of defaulting back to. So mashing X to close menus was something that was really getting on my nerves because it was opening up the main menu. You can change all that. It's got so much to see. You've got your kind of basic gameplay stuff there. You can change from metric to imperial, like I said earlier. There's a bunch of language packs. I was actually looking through these. So some of them are community. There's a Chinese, I presume, official translation, English and Spanish. Then you've got all these community packs too. When you click on them, it'll show a percentage. So I noted that the Swedish translation wasn't very good so far, 9.7% complete. But I had a look at Ukrainian just out of interest, 99.81%. Whether or not that's estimating it correctly, or maybe it's just like something malformed in the file. But I presume, again, the more popular the game becomes, the more easy it is for these different translations to pop up. There's a shocking amount of video customization for what is effectively a top-down spaceship building game, right? You've got a lot going on here, like a huge amount going on of customization. I think it's fairly safe to say you could probably run this on a toaster. Actual separate audio sliders, which is always quite nice for someone like me who needs to record it and balance all the levels. But the input was what I was most impressed with. Look at the amount of stuff you got going on here. It supports gamepad. You've got all sorts of different sensitivity levels. You've got, like I said, like gamepad dead zones and things like that as well. There's the ESC behavior, so I can adjust that to not constantly be spamming it and not actually achieve anything. Fully rebindable everything is actually insane. It's just got everything you need. And then, of course, you've got your gamepad settings right there at the bottom. It's really, really impressive, given that a lot of people would say, oh, it's like it's a top-down colony simulator, right? How complicated does it need to be? It's as complicated as you need it to be. And again, I think that really does sum the game up. You can follow the graphs, or you can just kind of leave your robots to their devices, take it a bit more chill, and just enjoy designing spaceships, which is exactly what I'm going to do starting tomorrow. We're going to go for the most aesthetic Bucko Drink ship you're ever going to see. Let me know what you think. I think right now for me, we'll do the playthrough of it. We'll go through all the research tree, make sure that we're covering everything. I want to see kind of most of the aspects of the game. I've covered a lot of it just from kind of playing with it over the past couple of weeks when I've had access to it. I want to have a look at the achievements too, but I think this is one of those games, because it's in early access right now, leaving it for doing a big long playthrough, leaving it for a couple of months and then coming back will effectively give you like a new game experience every time, right? So I think now's definitely the time. I'm glad I got into it right at the beginning here, so I can kind of see how it goes. Very excited to see where it goes as well, because I do love games where I can build very ridiculous spaceships and then complain when they don't work properly, because I've built a hideously inefficient design focusing exclusively on aesthetics. Oh, also worth mentioning, the dev does do live streams over on Twitch. I watched a little bit of it before I started this video just to have a look, see what was going on there. So if you are interested in some real, like literal, about as behind the scenes as you can get, go take a look at that. Don't forget to have a look at the link in the description. Thank you for joining me here. I was a little bit ill today, so I hope this has been a pretty adequate look at it. But like I said, we'll roll this into a full series as soon as this episode has gone out, as soon as the video and the series is all live. So thank you for joining me. Come back tomorrow, and we're gonna build a very, very fancy spaceship. It's my life goal now.